This is a clip, from Conversations Part 1, and because the lady in the clip didn't want to be represented, and it's mostly me talking, I'm just going to play me. Begin it now.
And there's a lot of things at stake. A lot of people have a lot of new job security at stake and whatnot, and a lot of things I say, they sound like there's some ruthless conspiracy going on. That's because there is. If you look at the police, there's organizations, political organizations, there's military organizations, there's street organizations. I've seen the Aryan Brotherhood referred to as a violent secret society. And why did they describe them first as a secret society and not a gang or prison gang, anything else of that nature? It's because they insisted that way, because they wanted to be seen as helping the white power structure create the greater work. And you see this in the institutions, the military institutions, the psychiatric institutions, the institutions at our schools, our education system. We see that in the policies and the school board and the people who design the programs. We see that in the difference between Christian school, boarding school, private school, public school. We see that in reform schools, which are reformed institutions that will, that also have a close relationship with psychiatric wards. And we see that in infirmaries and prison, where we see a lot of racist psychiatrists work who are indifferent to the patient's actual suffering, and they see him as a scumbag, as a criminal who should be experimented on and deserves his punishment, as they see the people in the psych ward who they spend only a few minutes talking to. And the counselors at school, their job is to get paid to get as many people they can to be recruited, and to sound as genuine and as caring as possible. And every once in a while there are those who care, but they know that their job is comparable to a used car salesman or something of that nature, a drug dealer. So one thing I was talking to you earlier about is, what is the difference between the guy, Antolin Garcia Torres, who is accused of kidnapping Sierra Lamar, who created the environment and took advantage of the environment and created a mini environment where it was a kind of underground relationship where they take advantage of her susceptibility to being kidnapped because of her drug habit. She was having trouble
Some playback issues.
kicking her drug habit.
Start back.
And in the end, he must have been able to get close enough to her to make his move. She struggled. He was able to tase her probably multiple times and take her away. And what's the difference between that and the murder that resulted in the environment the guy created with those very intentions, and what the white power structure is doing using our school system and selective law enforcement, selective education, selective funding? We see people that collaborate with the government that are militias and provocateurs, white racist organizations, Satanists, anarchists, scum who will infiltrate protests and assault police officers just to undermine people's cause. So after we've seen all the things we've seen, all the scandals, Iran-Contra, we've seen Watergate, we've seen a lot of scandals, a lot of political scandals. The Bay of Pigs, there was a lot of cocaine being brought in from Colombia. San Jose Mercury News covered a story on how the cocaine was being distributed from Nicaragua to the black communities, and there were suspicious circumstances in the death of the person who wrote that article, as well as the code of silence being about the California prison system, which overlaps with psychiatrists who have confidentiality agreements that work with the prisons. There's police officers working at psych wards, and there are psychiatrists working in prisons. It's part of making people fall in line. So, the story I'm about to tell you, it may be disturbing. To me, it's very disturbing because it is true, and everything I say to you is the absolute truth. I'm not going to swear on the Bible because I've done it a couple times and I already read it, even though I was telling the truth. And now, as I've promised, it's time to bring down that white power structure that oppresses us all. My personal story takes me everywhere from going to Cardin private school as a child to Cornerstone Christian School in Gilroy to CEDU, Ascent, Webb schools where you had some of the top elite children going there. It takes me to many different college campuses, community colleges, adult schools. I've been in many different environments, and I've studied them as the shy guy, taking mental notes, observing, trying to decide what school is best for me to excel, what my problem really is. And my problem has always remained the same, is that the nutrition, based on my lack of close proximity to the places I like to eat, is one of the problems. Problem with being shy and how it clashes in the environment. I gave the example of somebody allergic to, say, milk, and they lived on a milk processing plant, for example. The milk residue everywhere, cows milking everywhere. They wouldn't be too comfortable. I use the example of a black living during the time of segregation during the civil rights movement. He wouldn't be too comfortable. So what has taken place here precisely is there is discrimination going on. All right, so part two, I was saying that this is the important issue at hand. Now, to get to the meat of it, basically, the local psych wards and the greater psychiatric facilities and my past doctors who have seen me on court order have violated the confidentiality agreements, have colluded together, collaborated, and they used the teacher who is in charge of the group's communication class at my school to do it. They have brought in staff, and how would a teacher at my school know to bring in staff to get a rise out of me from a psychiatric ward unless they're violating the confidentiality agreements? How would they know to follow me home and to come to my house unless they're using the information that they got from their position in a way that isn't appropriate, official misconduct? Why are they trying to get a rise out of me if not to entrap me? It was the police, the sheriffs, they played their part. My own parents had played their parts. My older brother was an unwitting participant. My school, as I described before, played their part. I described in my other videos how the sheriff department parked by my trash cans. They're trying to block the road, to try to give me the old, we got our eye on you, except for it's not about the fact that you're a criminal, it's about the fact that you're revolutionary, the cycle of being a revolutionary. So, do you have any questions about anything I'm saying?
So do you really believe everything is like by design? There's it's like a domino effect. There's an action for everyone. God, stop taking. I'm so tired. I can't even think. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Every action for every opposite reaction. Okay. I'd say like this. It's like a dice. How many options are there is the guy, the creator of the dice. There's the creator, and there is the overseer. And they both get their applications into life as well. The creator, he makes the person who makes the dice, he determines the destiny. But when society gives us a set of rules and a set of options and everything else is illegal and you'll get arrested for, they've created a dice, an income dice. They've created an attitude dice, what's appropriate. They've created a dress code dice. And they are enforced by certain schools and institutions. There's people who are in charge of social controls and are looking for deviant behavior. And they include some of the people who used to be participating in the deviant behavior as well. Some of the past revolutionaries are now informants. And you can't trust anybody these days. So I believe it's by design, and there is a certain amount of coincidence, but the options are still there. The police don't control everything the person on probation or parole does, but they scrutinize them and control them enough to try to force them to get a desired effect. All I am is somebody that they weren't able to put on parole or probation or to quote-unquote TCON them, as the psychiatric institutions call it. I'm somebody who stood up to them, whose dad is a quote-unquote a pillar of society, which makes my stomach turn, that if I was a common African-American, that they would treat me with no respect at all, and no regard for my constitutional rights. And it's the fact that my dad's a brain surgeon and me and him don't have to get along at the moment. So how that makes me feel? It makes me feel like getting with all my peers, and I'm not going to get into that, but at least I woke you up a little bit, didn't I? So, do I think it's fair? that these things are happening. Do I think it's a coincidence? Do I think it's by design? I think it is absolutely by design. I would compare it to what the original beef in prison in San Quentin was about, when the guards dropped off a bucket of knives to the white Aryan gangs and the Bluebird white prison gangs that existed at the time. And they said, go get them. And that's what formed some of the original black gangs in San Quentin, is when they were attacked on the yard by a large group of whites with knives that were given to them. Did the guards say, pay them to kill them? Did the guards put a sign on the prison that says our job is to exterminate Negroes? Or did they use the existing institutions and the existing loopholes and their friends in high places and their networks that allowed them to reach those high places to persecute the political opposition? And they're no better than fucking Stalin, no better than Lenin, no better than Mao, no better than Saddam Hussein. Gaddafi is turning in his fucking grave because a bunch of scum who are no better than Goebbels, Himmler, Schindler, and fucking Hitler, and Ernst fucking Rudin, and Eugen fucking Fisher are the ones who put him in his grave. And they used the excuse that he is a tyrant and he needs to be overthrown. When the number one murderers in history are all European, all part of the Freemasonic power structure. It was a Freemason that bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Big boy. We dropped the bomb on them. It was a Freemason from the Tool Society, Hitler, that initiated World War II, and it was Zionist Jews that put them in power, who are also part of the Kabbalistic secret society structure. So if you look at how it all plays out, whether it's secret societies in Russia, the communists, the czars, whether it's the story of Anastasia, the story of Gandhi, or Mandela, we have secret societies at play using institutions to produce an environment of racial animosity and the process of neutralizing the political opposition hidden in plain view, while they mock every revolutionary that ever stood for anything right. So is it by design when Willie Lynch wrote the Willie Lynch letters? When Marquis de Sade was whipping and abusing people? Was it by design when I made this video for the effect to wake my people up, to stop being oppressed when people start waking up? Was it by design when God made the world and the garden and allowed the snake to enter? Was it by design when the devil inspired sin? Was it by design that death and evil came into the world? Yes and no. But surely, if I was to choose one or the other, it would definitely be yes. There are powerful forces at play, like the sun, the moon, the ocean, the earth, and the fucking scum. And the spirit you feel in church, that's what's resisting the scum. Unless, of course, it's a scum leading the fucking scum with a bunch of blindfolds on, that they won't acknowledge to themselves are there. Because they've been programmed to believe that they can see when they can't. Sorry for rambling on and on, but I was feeling it for a second. Anything else?
So do you think there is a divine judgment that's set against them, though? Or do you feel that each person has to take it upon themselves to kind of deal with that kind of thing?
There's
still some kind of divine judgment.
The judgment, I believe, is death. That's the judgment I stick with all the most part. And Jesus coming back, you know, it could simply refer to when the world ends and a lot of people die at the same time, that Jesus comes back at that point. So, you know, and the Revelation is pretty much hinting at that kind of environment in the first place and saying some things flat out. So the judgment is coming for everybody in the form of man's mistakes, and the individual judgment is coming at our death when we have to face God individually. I'm way over the top of it though, but anything else? I could put another video What do you feel? Another one or end it?